One problem we find with this van is that when we're out and about, down the beach, out for a walk, and we want to come back, have a nice hot shower, do some cooking, things like that, we've got no hot water. And that's because when we come back to the van, we've got to switch on the inverter, turn the water heater on at the mains, and give it half an hour to 40 minutes to heat up, which isn't very good. Now I've come up with a nice, easy, simple solution to that problem. I'm going to install a little device which will allow us to turn on the water heater and the inverter remotely wherever we are. So if we're coming back from the beach or coming back for a long walk, we want a hot shower, it's there, ready, hot and waiting for us. Now the other problem of course is that I decided for some strange reason to install this switch for the AC connection for the water heater in the garage. Now of course that means that when it's nice and warm and cozy in the van and it's cold outside or it's raining outside, I've got to come out, undo the back doors, let all the cold and wet inside just to turn it on, and then come back out again to turn it off when we're finished. And that's simply not good enough. Right, so this is what we're going to use. This is a solid state relay. It's 25 amp, plenty big enough to run this water heater. And all we do is we feed in the DC input on one side and then the AC live will come in one side of here and go out to the other. So what that will do is that will allow us to switch this on with a small DC load. That will be mounted on a heat sink because these do get quite warm, or can do. So that'll help to dissipate any heat. And it really is as simple as that. Now the DC input is going to come from the Victron Servo GX, which is the brains of the electrical system, using its own relay. And of course, once we start using the Victron system, we can use it from the touch screen, and we can also link it to the remote, the VRM, the Victron's remote management system, so that you can do it on the mobile phone, which will allow us, as long as we've got signal, to turn it on and off wherever we are in the world. Right, let's take a quick look at what we've got currently. This is the 6 amp breaker for the water heater. We need to take this out. We need to take the live from here to the solid state relay and then carry on the live from the relay onto its existing circuit. And then the DC needs to come down to the Servo GX, to the relay which is underneath, and then just connect into there. And then we can program that on the Victron system. Question is where to mount this relay, because there's not a lot of room. Right, so this is the one we want. This is the 6 amp for the water heater. So the power goes in the top. We've got live in, neutral in, and then live out, neutral out underneath. So we've got to take the live from here. We've got to go from here into the top of the solid state relay, back out again, and then join it to the cable that's here. So if I can get enough slack on the live, I can put that into this side and then just get another cable to go from this side back into the breaker. And then that is that job done. But where to put it is another question, because we are pretty crowded around here. I'm not entirely sure where to go. And it all depends on how much slack we've got on this brown cable. So I'm going to figure that out and I'll come back to you in a bit. Right, I think I've figured this out. So let's take a look. There's the brown live wire there. What we're going to do is going to mount the solid state relay underneath, because there's enough clearance under here to do so. We're going to put a junction block on here. That's going to go from the junction block to the output side of the relay, and then we're going to go put another brown wire from the input side straight into the bottom of the breaker, and then we'll run the DC cables down to the relay, down to the Servo GX relay, which is down there. So there we go, there's the plan. Let's see if we can pull it off. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to mount this. So this is a heat sink. That will dissipate some of the heat from the solid state relay. Now to mount these two together, just a couple of screws, but I am going to put in some thermal paste in between, and that will just help the heat get between the gaps. So we don't want any sort of air gap here. We want it nicely pasted up so that all the heat goes right the way through onto the heat sink. So we'll do that first of all. Right, all the parts I'm using are going to be in the link in the description. Right, it comes with a little kit. This is the paste. It's just a little syringe inside here. We've got some wet wipes just to wipe everything down, wipe the surfaces down so we get a good connection. There's looks like a little template, I suppose, so you only get it on the heatsink, I suppose. You put that over there. There we go. And then you could spread it on without getting it everywhere. That's quite a good little touch. And then you got a little spreader with all the information on as well. So that's the bits and pieces we need. Just got to take the end off of that. I'm not going to use the template. I'm just going to put a little bit on. It's the same sort of thermal paste you'd get in like computing. If you're doing any sort of circuitry work, it's the same sort of stuff. Just going to put a little bit of paste on here, not too much. Lid back on before it goes everywhere. A little spreader. We're just going to spread that about nice and evenly. Go. I'll put a little bit more on just to make sure we've got enough on there. And then we'll take a couple of screws. Nice and simple, nothing difficult about it. He says, dropping the screw. That's that mounted. And then we just got to screw that to the side of the ply. Just under there will do nicely. Okay, so we've got the live cable coming out of the bottom of the circuit breaker. That's going to go into the input side. We've got another one connected to the Wago connector here. This is rated to 32 amps, 400 volts, so that's safe to use. And then that's connected to the outgoing circuit. So we've just got to connect up these two live cables to the solid state relay, and then it's onto the DC side. Right, there we go, that's connected up. Once I've tested this out and I made sure it all works, I'll put a little hole inside the casing, let these come through a nice little hole with a, hopefully if I can find a little grommet to go in there to protect them as well. But just for now, we're going to keep it like that. Now we're going to do the DC side. So we need two DC cables to go down to the Turbo GX. Now this is a little bit thick, but this is all I've got. It doesn't need really to take too much power. It's only really a low ampage signal more than anything. So we're just going to route this round loosely. So make sure it works, and then we'll tidy it all up afterwards. Okay, so what we've got cable coming down here. That's the earth cable from terminal 4 of the SSD. That's going to go into the negative on the DC fuse box. The other cable coming from the SSD at terminal 3, that's coming down. That's going to go into the normally closed, the NC port of the relay for the Turbo GX. And then the middle one, which is a common, that's going to have a cable running from there up into the positive side of the DC fuse box with a fuse in it. And then we'll have the full link then. We'll have the live down to the relay and then back up to the SSD. That's that one. Nice easy one. So we've got earth to earth on the DC. We've got live, got the light there because there's no fuse. We'll stick that in a second. Then we've got the live comes down, goes into the common side of the turbo relay, and then out of the normally closed port, that goes up to the solid state relay. And then out there, got the two live wires, which is the AC side. That goes into one side of the double pole switch. And then the other one goes into the cable that goes off towards the water heater. So before I tidy all of this up, let's stick in a fuse and see if it works. Put a little 3 amp fuse. Ideally you don't need any more than 1 amp. Relay is off, everything's plugged in. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch on, well, the inverter's on, the light's on. You can see the heating light is off. Okay, so that's the one on the left. What we're going to do is we're going to look at, you can see that. Okay, so this is asking for the relay switches. So relay 2, which is what it's plugged into, see that, they're currently off. So I'm going to turn that on. Relay 2 enable in 3 seconds. There we go, light is on the solid state relay. If we look over here, yep, there we go, light is on. So the water heater is on. So there we go, it works. So all we've got to do now is tidy all this up. Right, what we're going to do now, we're going to label the relay. So we're going to go to settings, we'll go to devices, we're going to go down to the bottom, GX internal relay. And you can see I've already labelled that as water heater. And all you do is you click on that, and then you can just change the name on here to whatever you want. Okay, and then that's it, done. So as soon as we put on the inverter, all we need to do is click up there and water heater on. So that's how we control it from the Victron screen. And of course, we can now control it from the phone using the Victron remote monitoring system that they use, and there's also the app as well. I've even got the smartwatch app as well, so we can do it all remotely depending on where we are. If we're down the beach, we're out for a hike, we can now just turn on the water on the way home, so that when we get into the van, we've got nice hot tank of water to use for a shower or washing up or whatever we want to do. So there you go, that's how it's done. If you like that, if you found it helpful, then do subscribe, hit the like button, hype the video as well. That always helps with the algorithm as well. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really does mean a lot to us. Anyway, we will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.